I want to welcome to the stage Lorenz Meier, the CEO of Authorion, creator of PX4, the founder of PX4, and a dear friend. All right, please welcome Dr. Lorenz Meier.
So, hi everybody. It's good to see so many people here after last night. Thanks for the incredible drone show. I always find that very, very illustrative, like showing what does mass deployment actually look like. So I'm going to hold you a little bit on the title slide for one moment more. Remember, what did you see last night? Like a choreography of 500 drones, coordinated, doing one job, which is to impress us. And we're seeing that, I mean, this has been happening over the last 2, 3, 4 years, but we're seeing that more as like, oh yeah, that's a drone light show. What I'm seeing is the future. What I'm seeing is autonomous mass. What I'm seeing is deployment at a new scale that will become the norm. Because if we look at the overall industry, quite realistically, how many companies went public and became multi-hundred-million-dollar companies or even billion-dollar companies? Yeah, silence, deaf silence. How much have we seen an increase in scale and adoption? We haven't seen that much, at least for those of us who are around. I did count, I'm getting old, I'm 15 years in now. It actually is still a similar scale. What has changed in some ways that our developer community has grown, has professionalized, has established itself. So when I'm looking around, this room gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That is really good. So we're getting something right. But the industry at large, over the last 15 years, has been a horrible disappointment. When I was fundraising in Silicon Valley 2 years ago, people told me I stopped taking drone meetings a year ago. So back then you were part of a negative category. It's like, this will not work. But I took this meeting because the person that introduced me, you know, I really trust that person. So we have some good friends of the house, thank God. But that is the sentiment, or was the sentiment. But things are changing. And things are changing, and we're still here to solve the exact same problem that open source software and standardization, open standards, solved over the last 50 years. We had a hardware-defined industry, like with Sun Microsystems, or Digital Equipment Corporation, or Atari, or Siemens Nixdorf, for those who come from Europe. All these proprietary players that try to sell you a computer, software. I actually looked this up and I turned a little bit into a computer historian. They were even trying, every single one of them, trying to build an office suite. And for those of you who have worked in a corporate and are a little longer in their career, maybe you have heard of Lotus Notes? Yeah, that was IBM thinking it can do hardware, operating system, OS/2, and the office suite. That is the state of this industry today, and that's what you are seeing on the slide. And I did look back in my last year's keynote. I wanted to make sure to not generate that embarrassing moment where I have the same message again. And thankfully, I did put getting ready for scale. Now, we're doing it. So there are new drivers that change the dynamics. The first is Ukraine. This is from a drone hackathon in Kyiv. And if you look at the marketing material, there is a certain company that is very present in Kyiv. Whenever there is an existential threat that forces innovation, things move at an incredible pace. I'm not sure if airplanes would be reliable, cheap, and inexpensive and ubiquitous, relatively speaking, without the push in World War II. Because if you look back in the history of aviation, like in the 1930s, planes were flying boats that, or delivering posts. They were, like nobody was using them really at scale. Boeing, that's by the way why they're based in Seattle, Boeing was making flying boats. And they were doing that there at the lakes because you have that runway in the lake. That's not the Boeing we know today. And so don't underestimate what the conflict in Ukraine does to this industry. And some of you might, see it direct. For some of us, it's maybe a little bit more distant. But that's like the Ukrainian drone army is powered by open source software. Not just by our project. In fact, the vast majority of drones are powered by racing open source projects, INAF and others, Betaflight. But open source is powering the self-defense of Ukraine. You can say that. And so that is a force that will change the landscape fundamentally. Not just because Ukraine is pushing the envelope, but also because it changes the view of every other country on drones. What do you need to invest in? What scale do you need to reach? Suddenly 1,000 drones is a small number. Before that conflict, 1,000 drones was a whole US inventory of our size, like a 12-foot, 3-meter wingspan drone. So it's changing things forever. And you can see that. The DoD announced the Replicator initiative just a couple weeks ago, and when you ask people in the DoD, they don't actually exactly know yet what that means. But what they do know is they want to field 4,000 autonomous systems, air, land, and sea, over the next 18 to 24 months. Different sizes, different scales. Before that, a large order for the DoD was 180 drones. So that's a 20x in scale. And that's a direct effect of the concerns raised by the conflict and the invasion of Ukraine, Russian invasion of Ukraine. So that's really important. And I actually did brief the White House National Security Council at the White House a little over a week ago on what we're seeing from an open source, open standards perspective as needs. What is important for the US government to build an industry successfully at scale? Then, quite interestingly, we all know the world leading drone company is DJI. Now China, in an opposite reaction, is wanting to control it for the exact same reasons. This all has become geostrategic overnight. So China has established export controls. And I don't know if you're feeling that, but I have talked to companies that said like, well, I used to be able to buy autopilots at scale. Now I can only order 30 to 50 in every single order. And there are people that buy parts from China that need 200 parts, which is not an absurd, obscene large number. They have to do now like 8 orders because the supplier won't sell them more than 30 at once. So it's happening. So it does also hurt this industry because we historically had a really good international collaboration between open source software and great companies making hardware, wherever they are. But I think it will even have a stronger effect on DJI. And then we're starting to see countries that so far were deployment regions starting to get active and building their own domestic industries. And in the case of Auterion, we are helping Rwanda build its domestic base by training developers in country. And this will take time to build, But it's a completely new move to not just say like, hey, dear Zipline, come and deploy in our country, but actually saying, you know what, we also want to have developers ourselves. And we want to have companies, and we want to invest into that. And of course, we're always the ones building ecosystems, so it's cool. And so now to the, what does that mean? You know, there's an international concern around drones, adoption is catching up. And what you're seeing here is a heavy lift drone used by Walmart, or the fleet running open source software, in this case, of course, because this is video material that we have from Auterion. So we're starting to see deployments at scale. We're starting to see things that are real. And I actually want to, in time, go a little bit back for one moment and look at what did we all in this room actually achieve here together? Because what I just said is 20x increase in deployment. We're going to see massive scale. And we're going to see deployments at a different level. So finally, this industry is ripe for prime time. Well, we started with PixHawk. We started with Mavlink. We turned PixHawk from a hardware piece more into an industry standard to enable everybody to come together over the last couple of years. And now, interestingly enough, the US government has adopted Mavlink as its official drone autonomous systems communication protocol. So when you see anywhere RAS-A, that is basically a version-controlled release of Mavlink. Officially approved by US government, that's what drones should be using. If you've heard about the Blue SUS program, that is what the requirement says. So open source really driving it. We also see Walmart and UPS expand their drone programs. They have been talking about that for some time. Now you could be a cynic and say like, yeah, but I've heard about drone delivery forever. And like Jeff Bezos went on air, like I think 2013 or something, like a long time ago. I'm still waiting for Amazon Prime Air. Have you seen Amazon Prime Air anywhere? No? Okay. And so drones are being put to work. We start to see that. And maybe our AV support can quickly start the video. We're starting to see that, and it's becoming real. And I just want to show it to you because whenever I talk to people, they don't believe that this is real. So what you see in that video is happening in 33 locations in 6 states. Not as a pilot, as a commercial delivery. You can see that cell phone footage, drone taking off autonomously, flying from your local Walmart to the neighboring communities. Pretty large distance. And then winching the cargo, and the most sought after item are Oreos, for whatever reason. Tuna also is very, very popular. So winching that down, and then you can just grab it. And I have to admit, 2 years ago, I thought that's a bad idea. It's never going to work, and nobody wants it, which was wrong in every regard. And so now actually that delivery is powered by PX4 and Auterion. So we're definitely there. Yeah, and then the drone comes back, does precision landing on a target. This would be a nice application for UWB. And it's reality. And I don't want to spoil the next number, but this is happening at a much larger scale than you can imagine. And it's happening at a scale that Jeff Bezos would be hoping for. And before going to the statistics, I also want to point something else out. The emergence of third-party software vendors. So what we've done for this cargo drone is enabling third-party apps, and there are more than 7 third-party applications These are different ones that you see here, running on a Walmart cargo drone. They're made by different companies. They're not made by Auterion. They're not part of PX4 upstream. Somebody else comes in and writes a winch controller or a video streaming app or anything like that. And then they can deploy it remote across the fleet. So that smartphone OS era is here. It's quietly happening already. It's not a vision anymore. And what we will roll out for all of our systems in Q4 is this app store that you're seeing, like quite literally an app store. So if you're here and you have functionality, you can actually build an app. You can upload it to the app store. You can sell it through us. So that's another sign of maturity for the industry. And now we're coming to the scale. 10,000 commercial deliveries over about 14 months. And Walmart also did realize that. Apparently, Oreos are very popular. So you can check out the video on LinkedIn. I didn't find it on YouTube, but you can check out the video on LinkedIn. It is hilarious. And you might want to take a note, like, who seemed to have commented first on this? So this is a great success for every contributor in this room. Because 10,000 drone deliveries means a lot more than 10,000 flights. It means reliable operation. It means trust of major players. And so it's thanks to all of you that we've built something that flies over people's backyards on a 55-pound drone, and it works. So if anybody is, if you ever get internally or externally in the future that argument's like, yeah, but what about this? Is it reliable? Is it safe? It's like, well, if Walmart is using it, you can probably use it too. Don't try to explain. When you're explaining, you're losing. Just give them something to think about. And so I want to close with what I see as the scale potential of this industry over the next couple of years. I'm expecting a massive explosion of adoption over the next 18, 24, 36 months, fueled by the fact that we actually now have stuff working, like with last mile delivery, and B, a massive investment of governments into our sector, because it becomes a question of liberal democracies staying safe or not. Ukraine would not be free without drones today. You can say that, and that's important. And so everybody's watching, and everybody's investing. And so you can expect a completely different scale of this industry over the next 24 months. And then I'm expecting a slower, sustained growth. And to me, that's actually, despite the fact that it's related to the largest war in Europe, a somewhat positive message, because we as a community will be able to make an impact. We are going to be able to contribute to freedom. And every open source community, by the way, as I told you, like everything gets used, no matter if you actively try to push it or not. And it will help this industry to get out of this sort of initial hard phase where you just need to work through low-scale problems and into something that is a lot more fun and happening at scale. So, happy to take one or two quick questions, and thank you for the time to listen to me.
Just a quick question. How much of the stagnance in the drone industry would you attribute to things like regulation?
So I'm a contrarian when it comes to regulation. I know that regulation is often cited as a reason for not being able to do stuff. I think the Walmart deployment under existing regulations shows there are strong counterexamples to that. At the same time, I will say, if the learnings from 10,000 successful flights would be taken on by the FAA a little faster when it comes to BV loss, I see an additional boost. But I think what has held this industry back is, if I ask you in this room, what is the ROI of using a drone? I can answer that question for every single one of Auterian's customers. I can give you a number. In terms of Walmart, it's reducing delivery cost by half today, and we'll reduce it by a factor of 5 at scale. End of story. Simple. And I think this industry has been a little bit too much focused on technology historically and hasn't focused on like, what value are we actually creating?
Very good. Thank you very much.